Thank you very much for inviting me to share this time with you. Let me tell you a little bit more about myself. Earlier in my life, I was a lawyer. I went to Georgetown Law and I practiced law in Washington, D.C. for several years, and I decided I wanted to make a career change. And while I was practicing law, I was a cook in a hotel. That's how I paid for my education in my roach-infested apartment on Capitol Hill. And I decided I liked the hotel business, so when I made the transition from practicing law, I got back into the hotel business in human resources. And so I was in human resources in the hotel business for a good part of my adult life. I went on from there to be a general manager for the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company. I was the corporate director of training for the Hyatt Hotel Company, and I was the VP of HR for Omni International Hotels. And so what is in this book, Managing to Make a Difference, is very practical stuff. I don't like white tower theory. I like real world dilemmas. And what that means is we don't always have easy answers to all of the issues that confront you and the managers and executives that you support in creating a great organization. But I think it's important to have a dialogue. So as I am speaking today, I hope if you have a thought, if you have a question, maybe you disagree with me. I could be wrong. I believe passionately in what I'm going to teach you this afternoon, but that doesn't mean I'm right. And there may be some great ideas, and almost certainly there are some great ideas out among the people sitting at these tables. So if you have something to contribute, believe me, it will make this whole time better for all of us. So that's a little bit about my history. The two things I'm going to address today are some advice about recruiting and some advice about retention. If you get better at retention, the pressure to recruit goes down, right? There are two sides of the coin. So getting better at retention actually helps you with your recruiting. And I was listening to NPR on the way to work today, and they were talking to somebody who had just done some survey, nationwide survey of managers in medium-sized businesses, and they asked them what their number one problem was, and they said, our number one problem is finding qualified people. So I understand that's an issue for everyone. So what's in it for you to get better at recruiting and get better at retention? This is the part where you now say something to me. What's in it for you? Why should you care about getting better at those two things? You don't care. Okay, I'm done with my presentation. I think there's somebody in the parking lot who might be interested.
It reduces cost.
Excuse me?
Reduces cost.
Reduces cost, yes. Sir, you said something?
Cost savings.
Cost savings. What else?
It allows you to focus more on the engagement of your people. It gives you the ability to strategize and focus on other things.
It allows you to focus more on engagement of your people and the ability to strategize in other areas.
Improves culture.
It improves the culture. You really just don't want to play with me today. Okay, so we're going to proceed. I think there are a lot of reasons to get better at retention and get better at recruiting, and I agree with all of the ones that were stated. It also makes your life easier, right? You don't have to spend so much time. If you're getting better at retention, you don't have to spend so much time in that negative space of letting people go and all of that sort of thing. You can spend more time on developing people, on making sure people are happy at their jobs. And this, of course, benefits all of your stakeholder groups. So there's a lot of reasons that you might want to get better at this. I'm going to address retention. I'm going to address recruiting first, simply because most of you are engaged. We have crickets. Okay. Make a note, next time I'm speaking, let's have the exterminators in before I do this. So, recruiting. Here are a few things that might help you. How many people in this room have, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little feedback here. How many people in this room have a talent bench, a list of possible candidates you might contact if the right opening comes up? Raise your hand so everybody can see. A handful of people have that. Good for you. Good for you. Do you have any idea of how many people are on your talent bench? 15 people? Okay, good. Anybody have more than 15 on your list? I don't see that. All right. I encourage the rest of you to create a strategy. One of the best things you can do to improve your recruiting results is recruit constantly. Teach your managers in your business to recruit constantly. When they're out there, have your recruiting antenna on. And recruit before you have an opening. Too often, as human resources professionals and as leaders, we don't even start recruiting until somebody says, I'm leaving. And then you all freak out about time to fill, and then you get pressure to compromise your standards because somebody needs a warm body on the floor, and they're hammering you, and that can be mitigated if you recruit before you have openings. And how do I know this? Do I know this because we're geniuses at Talent Plus? No. I know this because we have a lot of clients, and we learn these things from our clients. And we have some clients out there who are very aggressive about making sure they're recruiting all the time so that when an opening comes up, they know who they're going to call. I give you just one very specific example. I remember interviewing the executive chef of the Marriott Marquis in New York. And that is a very large hotel. That's probably 2,000, 2,500 room hotel. They have several restaurants. The executive chef in a hotel like that doesn't actually cook. It becomes very much an administrative job because he's got so many restaurants and banquets and things of the sort that he has sous chefs who report to him. So in any event, he told me he interviewed one sous chef candidate a week, every week, minimum of one, whether or not he had an opening. And so when he did have an opening, he knew where all the sous chefs were, he knew where his candidates were, and he knew who he was going to call for a particular opening, for a particular kind of cuisine, et cetera, et cetera. So you can encourage your managers to participate in this with you. So how do you find these people to put on your bench? First of all, ask your top performers for referrals. How many people in here have some sort of a program where people get incented in some way to recruit people into your organization? How many people in here are thrilled with the results that program is giving you? Nobody's, a couple of people, good for you. Good for you, and I hope you share whatever your practices are that are making you thrilled with that, because in general, people are not. So I'm going to tell you how to make it better. Ask people one-on-one. And I know your organization may be too big, so you personally can't do it, but make sure somebody is sitting down with your top performers and say, who do you know who's like you? Who do you know? You know, recruiting is very much like selling. It's selling in different clothing. And so if you say, who do you know to somebody, they're going to say, well, I know somebody, but they wouldn't want to work here. They're going to give 5 reasons why they wouldn't, they're not work. Ignore all those reasons. Ignore that. Get the name. If you can get the contact information, get the contact. Ask your managers, who's the best X you've ever worked with? Well, they're living in California. Never mind, call them. You never know whether they have a relative in Lincoln, Nebraska. And they're thinking of moving. You say that, you see, you're laughing, but there is a health resort called Canyon Ranch in Tucson, Arizona. And I met the head of the wellness department there when I was living in Tucson and working for Talent Plus. And he's a very impressive guy. His name is Dan Baker. He's a best-selling author, and he's got a PhD from UNL. And he'd been living in Arizona for more than 20 years, and he'd been working for this resort for more than 19 years. And when I called him, he was getting ready to move to Lincoln, Nebraska, because his parents lived here and they were getting older, and he wanted to live in the same community. So you never know what's going on. So it's like selling. If you don't make the contact, if you don't ask, you may be missing an opportunity. So ask your best performer, and I'm talking about one-on-one. Just pull it out of them. Just pull it out of them. They might not submit a name if you have a program and you announce it. They might not aggressively be thinking of someone, but you pull it out of them one-on-one. Ask them how they heard about you. Ask them why they decided to apply to your company. Ask them those kinds of questions that will give you information that will help you use your limited resources in recruiting to maybe fish in the right ponds, maybe use the right bait. When I opened the Portman Hotel in San Francisco in, I don't know, the year 2, long time ago, we were an unheard of brand, and we were wanted to be a top hotel, and I had to recruit everybody, but I'm thinking of the waiters, and we recruited waiters from many of the top restaurants in San Francisco, and it's very competitive in the restaurant business in San Francisco. You have a lot of incredible cuisine going on in San Francisco. So I would ask them, why did you decide to join us? We're unknown, you're working for a great restaurant, you're making good money. It was because we decided to give all of the wait staff business cards with their name on it. That's what they told me. And so you never know why somebody might think of joining your organization, but if you ask your top performers, there's no point in asking your mediocre people or your worst people. You want to ask your top performers where these came from. So where were they? How did they find out about you? And who do they know? When you're hiring somebody that you're pretty excited about, that's a great time to ask them who they know, who might want to also work for your organization you can get in touch with. Recruiting, it is still the case that relationships and networking, personal networking, are the 2 most effective ways to recruit people. And that also includes networking over social media and so forth. But it still is the case that in all our clients across the country, figuring out how to network and starting with your best people is the best way. Recruit before you have an opening. Create that talent bench so that you know who you're going to call when that opening occurs. Are there any techniques that any of you are using to improve your recruiting results that you might want to share with people? It's tough. It's tough, but it's just like selling. You've just got to keep at it. And I know some of you don't have a lot of extra time. You've got all kinds of administrative work to do, and you've got all kinds of other things to do. But if you have the time and you can implement some of the things I'm talking about, you'll see your recruiting results improve. So now I'm going to switch over to retention, which is the other side of this formula. Because if we can get better at retention, the pressure on recruiting is relieved. So I'm going to start with this issue. Why do people leave their jobs? There's research on this, and I am sure that most of you are familiar with the research. Gallup does this research every year, and every year it comes out the same way. The number one reason people leave their jobs is they have a problem with their supervisor, with their manager. That is absolutely the number one reason. So as HR professionals, the most impactful strategy you can implement to improve retention and reduce employee turnover is make sure everyone has a great supervisor. If you do some homework and look at your turnover supervisor by supervisor, you will find that 20% of your supervisors are causing 80% of your turnover. That rule of thumb is very consistent. You might recognize that as the Pareto phenomenon. That rule of thumb is very consistent. There are a handful of supervisors who are causing the vast majority of your turnover, and if for somehow you could replace those people, your turnover would go down. Your retention would go up. This is research from Gallup. I'm going to give you a quotation from the chairman of Gallup, Jim Clifton. The single biggest decision you make in your job as a leader, bigger than all the rest, is who you identify as the manager. When you name the wrong person as manager, nothing fixes that bad decision. Not compensation, not benefits, nothing. That is a quotation from Jim Clifton based on the years of research Gallup has done on this. I know you can't change out some of those supervisors who are causing that turnover. I know that's not realistic. You can't just go in there and blow them out the door. So what then? Be careful who you promote. The next time you get an opportunity to promote somebody into a management position, into a supervisory position, avoid the Peter Principle. I'm just curious. This book came out in 1969. It was called The Peter Principle, Why Things Always Go Wrong. How many people in this room are old enough to even remember that book? There's a handful of folks in here. It was a terrific book. And it's by Lawrence J. Peter and Raymond Hull. And it was everywhere in the 70s. It was everywhere. The Peter Principle. And essentially, what the book pointed out is this. People do a great job in job A, and based on how great they did, they get promoted to job B. And if they do a great job in job B, they get promoted to job C. And they keep getting promoted until they reach their level of incompetency, where they don't do a great job at job D. So they're stuck at job D. But we keep promoting people based on how they do in their current job. And you can change that in your organization. You can persuade people and show them the wisdom of focusing on someone's potential to do that next job rather than just how they did in their first job. It's the easiest place to see this mistake that people make is in sales. We take the best salesperson and we promote him or her into the sales manager position. Well, they're a great salesperson. It doesn't mean they can manage their way out of a paper bag. And so we keep shooting ourselves in the foot. We take our best salesperson off the street. We make that person a manager. Now they're screwing up the whole department. And by the way, they're not selling because they're now the manager. So the way to make sure going forward that you're putting great supervisors in place when you promote people is to make sure you're thinking about their potential as a manager, their potential as a supervisor, rather than the fact that they did a great job. So I tell you this just to give you an example of what I'm talking about. These years ago, when we were opening this hotel in San Francisco, the Portman Hotel, I was the VP of HR. We were in pre-opening. Hotel was under construction, but the salespeople get there a year in advance because if you want to sell conferences, as you know, you plan your conferences in advance. So you don't want to open a hotel and have nobody in it on opening day. So you pre-sell. And so that the sales team was in place, they were going, and the director of sales and marketing in that hotel got a terrific job offer. She took it, and the position was open. The number one sales rep walked into the managing director's office and said, I want that job. I want to be the sales manager. And we evaluated this person on his management capability, not just on his sales capability, and we weren't very excited about him as a manager. Loved him as a sales rep, but we weren't excited about him as a manager. And I had to go out and deliver this message to him. And that's what I said. I said, listen, I'm sorry, we love you as a sales rep, but we don't see you as a good fit for the management position here, so you're not going to get it. He said, well, that's been my career goal. And I said, why? He said, well, first of all, it pays more money. And I was the VP of HR. I said, so if I could create a sales incentive program for you where you'd make more money than the manager if you really sold, would that be okay? So I removed that problem for him. And but it was his career goal. He wanted to be a sales manager. And I couldn't get him to stay in that sales rep job. And I walked out of his office. I had the conversation in his office, and I walked out of there knowing he was going to resign. I knew that he had the resume and the sales talent to get a job somewhere as a sales manager in the hospitality business. And he went and took a job as the director of sales and marketing of the world-famous Pebble Beach golf course. And I sleep well about that. I knew I was going to lose him. But putting him in a job that wasn't a good fit for him was not the solution to that issue. Because I believe that had I put him in that management job, which I believe was not a good fit for him, assume I'm right for 1 minute, he would have experienced an immense amount of stress because he wouldn't have been doing a great job at that. And that stress causes health problems, that stress causes family problems, causes all kinds of stuff. And I got to tell you, I sleep well at night because I refused to be a party to putting him in a situation that I didn't think was good for him. It certainly wasn't good for our business. It wasn't good for the guests we were serving. It wouldn't have been good, and it wouldn't have been good for his staff because he wouldn't have been a good manager. Now, I might have been wrong, but for this purpose, I had to make my best call, and it wasn't just me, it was also his direct boss. So, get rid of the Peter principle. Instead of just promoting people based on how they do in their current job, think about what is their potential to perform with excellence in that supervisory job or in that management job. It's a different kind of job. And so we have to think about that. And if you are thinking about that, if you're thinking about an hourly employees and you have an opening for supervisor, think about this. Who is the employee on that shift who loves to teach things to the other employees? Who is the employee who just spontaneously is helping the other employees perform better? The person really cares about them. The person is bringing their boss ideas for improvement. How can we run this shift better? Those kinds of things. Even if they're not the best performer in that job title, they might have some management capabilities that entitle them to be considered, even though they're not the best performer in that job title. So you start thinking about those kinds of things, and if you look for those people, you will find them. They're there. But if we just focus on how they're doing in that job, we might miss them. So I want you to do something. I want you to write a few notes here. I want you to think about a manager or some kind of boss you've reported to. Maybe the person was a coach, maybe they're a teacher. This person made a difference for you. What was it they did? Why do you think they were such a great manager? What was it they did? Just write a note or two. Write a note about how that affected you, how that made you feel, how it impacted your engagements. and write a note about, after you do that, write a note about what insights occur to you as a result of thinking about just that. What insights occur to you? All right, at your tables, I just want you to go around really quickly. I'm talking about, a minute a person. And just say, what was it they did? How did that make you feel? And what comes up for you in terms of something you can learn from that? And maybe share with your managers. Just go around your table real quick, minute a person, tell each other those things.
Change my parameters of my thinking, and I find words coming out of my mouth that were because of that experience. And for instance, good things can come from it. That was what, this was a position. And I'm thinking of
They trusted you to.
Exactly. Yes, just to teach
But it is,
Any table need more time? Y'all good? All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me have your attention. Somebody share with the group, what came up for you when you just thought about it in this way?
We mentioned that it definitely opens doors, it allows you to be trusted and trusted, and that also gives you a much higher self-esteem and you're a more happier person, so that you're more willing then to spread that happiness with the rest of your.
So the good managers who made a difference trusted you and did things that improved your self-esteem and enabled you to make a difference. I just want to make sure we're summarizing it. Any other thoughts? It was exactly the same for everybody in the room.
We talked about communication, how effective communication is, and even you know what that conversation's going to be about, but it still made you value that you were having that regular communication.
So if you didn't hear that, it's emphasis on regular communication. And I will just tell you this, if you read any studies on this, it will verify that when it comes to that kind of communication, particularly from managers, the most important thing is listening. Listening to people who are trying to get your attention. That contributes to their self-esteem because it shows respect that maybe they have a good idea. Or maybe they're expressing a need that I can then meet and improve their engagement and their job satisfaction. Any other things that came up for you when you were reflecting on these people yourself or listening to other people?
We all worked for the same person because it was all common characteristics. It's like it says it.
So all these people work for, but here's the deal. You have a model. Here's what a good manager is, right? You all have those models because I asked you to think about those people and you have those models. So in addition to anything I may have told you about looking for characteristics of who you're going to promote into that supervisor or manager position or even department head position, you have models. Think about what you learn from those models and then think about, here's the candidates. How closely do these people share the characteristics of the great managers I've had in my life? And maybe you didn't even report to them. I know some terrific managers that I've worked with that I didn't have the opportunity to report to them, but I still know their model. So you can learn from your observations. You're in the laboratory every day. And you can try things, and you can learn from your observations. So that first point is make sure everybody has a great supervisor. The next point I want to make, I was going to go look at my notes, but I have to look at my notes because people think my hair fell out, but it didn't. It grew in and choked off my brain. And so unless I look at my notes, I have no idea what I'm going to say. There was another study done that was just published in the Harvard Business Review this January of 2018. And it was a study that Facebook did on its own workforce. And I'm going to read you what they found in terms of why people left. Because Facebook claimed in that article that they were really good at identifying great managers and supervisors, so that in their organization that wasn't the number one reason people left. In the Facebook research, it was three things. They found their job wasn't enjoyable, they found their strengths weren't being used, and they weren't growing in their job. And so it's another data set that is in addition to the business about being a great manager, about making sure everybody has a great manager. So now I'm going to share some things with you that are going to help you be a better manager, a better leader. And these are things you can teach to the managers in your organization. And the very first item on the list, this is the most important thing I'm going to teach you this afternoon. If you're doing your email, stop for a minute. This is important. If you only learn this and nothing else, it'll be a big deal. it can change your life. And here it is. Quit asking people to change. Quit asking people to, we're so cavalier about this, right? You all do performance evaluations, and you're managing the performance evaluation system in your organizations, and you know, people go in for their performance evaluation, and it's most commonly the sandwich method, right? We all know what the sandwich method is. Somebody comes in for their performance evaluation, you tell them some good stuff. Then you get to the stuff that is hard to hear, and then you give them some good stuff on the way out the door. That's the most common method of doing performance evaluations. And often that stuff in the middle involves asking people to change. We're pretty cavalier about this. Don't be so sensitive. How am I going to accomplish that? Can I go to CVS and get like a cream that's going to not make me so sensitive? You need to be better organized. That's one that's pretty common. Let me give you a little hypothetical situation here. Guy's in his early 40s, goes in for performance evaluation, comes out, his friend says, "How did it go?" And he says to his friend, "You know, not bad. But every year, whoever I'm reporting to tells me I have to be better organized. And so, once again, I'm being sent to the seminar on planning and organization." Just freeze frame that guy right there. Let's think about another employee. I'm going to make this one a female, who is just, and she's in her 30s, she's just naturally very organized, detail-oriented. Nothing ever slips through the cracks. And of course, since this is not a weakness of hers, she isn't directed to go to the seminar because she's already good at it, but she hears about it. And she goes and asks her boss, "Can I go to the seminar?" She's a good employee, the money's in the budget. The boss says, "Yeah, sure, go to the seminar." So here these two people are on the way to the seminar. The guy is kind of dragging his feet and he's going, yes, once again I'm going to the seminar. I never learn anything new. It's always the same, and I never get better at it. And here she is going to the seminar saying, "Oh boy, I bet I know most of what they're going to teach me in here, but I can always learn something new so I can crank up my ability to be organized." So, and I'm going to give you the entire seminar on how to plan and be organized. You read? They all boil down to this. Number one, make a list. Number two, prioritize the list. Number three, execute according to your priorities. Seminar's over. So the guy comes out of the seminar. Let's do the female. She comes out of the seminar, and she's learned some new things, and people are just frightened of her now. She is so well organized. The follow-up is so precise that she's walking down the hall. People are going, "Oh my God," and they're diving into offices because they know that there's something she won't forget that they were supposed to do. I had a boss like that. His name was Siggy Brower. And he was a regional vice president for Ritz-Carlton. And he had 11 hotels at the time that I reported to him. When he visited our hotel, he had the most incredible system for follow-up I have ever seen in my life. This is long before you could do any of this electronically. If he wanted an item to follow up on, he'd just say to anybody, he'd say, "Give me a piece of paper." And you'd rip a piece of paper out of your pad there, and he'd write it down, and he'd jam it in his pocket. And he told me, "Larry, when I get home at night and I'm emptying my pockets, that piece of paper comes out, and I have a file on your hotel. I just put it in that file, randomly." So he's got random pieces of paper, like gum wrappers and you name it, random pieces of paper stuck in this file. And he would come and meet with the executives in the hotel, and we'd sit at this board table, and he'd get that file out, and we'd start sweating bullets because he'd open the file, and they were in random order. He'd just pick one up, and he'd say, "Larry, have you looked at the food and beverage costs? You were supposed to do that." And he never forgot anything because it was all in the file. And he'd just keep turning those things. It was unbelievable. So there's a method for you. If you have no electronic method, we all started using that method. It's easy, it's unbelievable. So in any event, the guy comes out of the seminar. What does he do with the list? This is the guy who isn't good at being organized. He made the list because it was an exercise in the seminar. What does he do with it? He loses it. Throws it away. Doesn't want to look at that list because he doesn't have the innate talent to be organized. And so here's something you can write down. 2-word sentence. Aptitude matters. Aptitude matters. So he doesn't have the aptitude for it, so he loses the list. He can't incorporate into his behavior what he has learned in the seminar because he doesn't have that particular aptitude. And we are so cavalier about asking people to change in our personal lives as well as in our business lives. I have the privilege to teach this seminar, frankly, all over the world, but in Talent Plus in particular. And I was making this point about asking people to change, and one young lady, who I happen to know had been married about a year, raised her hand. She said, "You mean my husband isn't going to change?" And I said, "Well, tell me more. What are you talking about?" She said, "Well, I'm very on purpose, goal-oriented, and my husband is kind of a happy-go-lucky, go-with-the-flow kind of guy." I said, "Really? Give me an example." She said, "Great." She said, "Last Saturday, he left the house at 10 a.m. He was going to run 6 errands. He got back at 4 p.m., and he only had 2 of them done." And I said to him, "What about the other 4? He said, "Oh, we'll get to them some other time. Don't worry about it." She said, "You mean to tell me that's not going to change?" And I said, "Well, let me ask you a question. If it doesn't change, are you still going to love him? You still want to stay married to him?" She said, "Of course. But what can I do about that?" Here's my brilliant wisdom on that. Get off his back. Marry as is. If you get a change, it's a bonus. Hire as is. If you get a change, it's a bonus. We're so cavalier about asking people to change. I'm going to tell you about another young lady at Talent Plus. This is before the 2 of you joined. She was getting married. Her sister was going to be her maid of honor. And her sister was notoriously 1 hour late to everything. And so what she did was she had a one-off engraved invitation printed that said that the wedding started 1 hour later than it really was going to start, and she enlisted the wedding party to lie to her. And she was there on time. I mean, who gets an engraved invitation and wonders, do you really think that's the truth? You know, who does that? Nobody. She was there on time. And I bet everybody in this room knows a person in your life who is chronically late. Maybe the person sitting next to you. But you all know somebody who's chronically late, right? And maybe you've tried to help that person because life is better if you're on time. I happen to agree with that. And so maybe you've tried to help that person. You've created consequences for them when they're on time. You've created consequences when they're late. You've done things like you've said, "We're going to the concert. We're all going to get in the van. We're going to leave here at 7. And if you're not here, because I know you're late all the time, if you're not here, the van's leaving at 7, whether you're here or not." And you leave, and they're not there, and they still don't change. That's how difficult it is. That's how difficult it is to get people to change. It's not impossible, but hire as is. If you get a change, it's a bonus. And if you can take this one principle home with you today and quit asking the people you care about in your personal life, quit asking them to change. Quit participating with managers in your business who want their employee to change. Because if you pay attention, it almost never works. It almost never works. And what am I saying? I'm saying accept people as they are. People have aces and spaces. People have strengths and weaknesses. Accept them as they are. This is the ultimate celebration of diversity. We usually think about diversity in terms of groups of people, right? Males, females, baby boomers, millennials, various ethnic groups. That's the way we think about diversity. What I'm talking about is diversity person by person. Accepting the person as they are, not asking them to change. Now, I know some of you are thinking of certain employees you have that if they don't change in some way, they're not going to be successful and they're not going to be able to retain their jobs. I submit to you that the most likely aspect of that situation is the person is in the wrong job. If somebody is in a job where they have to change who they are to be in that job, they're probably in the wrong job. This is the most important thing you can do to make a difference in the lives of the employees and persuade managers to do it. You know, if we pointed to any person in the room and we listed their deficiencies, lists that go on almost forever, long as you're on. If we list for any person in the room their areas of giftedness, the list is about that long. This is how you create your success. This is how you contribute to your organization. This is how you make a difference in the world, by understanding what your gifts are and how you can use those gifts to be successful on your own behalf and to make a difference in the lives of other people without changing them. Asking people to change so as a business decision, think of it as a business. I'm not saying people don't change, but I'm saying what's the best business decision? If you want someone who's going to be in a customer service position, and if you want them to smile, hire someone who smiles naturally when they see a person. Don't hire someone with a lot of experience and technical expertise and then try and teach them how to smile. Excuse me one second. Have a little water. That's what I'm talking about. What's the better business decision? Just hire somebody that way or try to install that? You're going to spend time, effort, and money. Whereas if you want a certain kind of person, hire that. Hire that person. I opened the Ritz-Carlton in Singapore, and I was having lunch one day with the CEO of a very, very highly regarded 4-year hotel school in Singapore. And more than 70% of their students were Chinese. And this was in the early 90s. More and more Westerners were coming to Asia. And it so happened that his Chinese students didn't smile as easily as Westerners do. And more Westerners were coming over, and he realized that Westerners wanted hotel employees to smile at them. And so he created a program, major program. It took him 20 minutes to explain it to me about getting his students to smile. He had secret shoppers. He had people observing, hiding in bushes and observing. It took him 20 minutes. He said, "What do you think?" I said, "Good luck." Did you ever see somebody who's been you're in a retail store and you're encountering a retail associate who's just been through the customer service training, and smiling is not natural to them, but they know they're supposed to smile, so they do this? when that happens to me, my heart goes out. I say, God bless that person. They're doing what they are supposed to do to the best of their ability, but it doesn't work very well because it's not genuine. And so he said, what do you think? I said, good luck. He said, what? I take a different approach. He said, what is it? I said, I just hire people who naturally smile. And then I say to them, you know, you have a wonderful smile. And then I explain to them how that helps our business. We have an associate named Sammy. I did this to Sammy when she came into Town Plus. This woman has a smile that could light up an entire stadium. And you can't teach that. You just can't teach that. And she loves to do it. And every time she sees me, boom, that smile comes out. But she uses it all the time as well. Excuse me. So, next point. So first of all, quit asking people to change. The next point is get the fit right for a person. A person is in the right fit when their natural behavior happens to be the behavior that leads to success. Whether or not something appears to be a strength or appears to be a desirable trait depends on the context in which the behavior is expressing itself. Let me give you an example. I want you to think about Mike Tyson, the youngest heavyweight champion in the history of organized boxing. Let me tell you what his big gift is: beating people up. That's his gift, and he was the best at it at one time. When you use that gift inside the boxing ring, you become a world-famous sports hero and zillionaire. He made $300 million during his boxing career. When you use that same behavior outside the boxing ring, you get thrown in jail. Mike had both during his life. But recognize this, it's the same behavior. The only difference is the context in which the behavior is occurring. And there's often a fit for whatever a behavior is. When it looks like it's a weakness, when it looks like it's undesirable, maybe there's a context where it's desirable. I'm going to give you a challenging example. I want you to think about lying. A universally condemned behavior, which I agree with. What about if somebody is an undercover policeman? I'll tell you what, I know people who have been undercover policemen, and you better be good at lying, and you better enjoy doing it because you have to do it every day. There's even a context for people who are good at lying. They could do things like that, or they could be an actor. So when you have somebody who you're looking at this behavior and you're saying it's a weakness, one of the things you can do is say, is there a better fit for that person? Sometimes it's simple stuff. I remember I was doing a seminar at the Ritz-Carlton in Naples, Florida, and they were having a problem with one of their concierges. They really thought he was going to be a star when they hired him. And every indication was he should have been a star, and he wasn't. And they asked me if I could help figure it out. And as it happened, he was on a shift while I was available. And I sat down and talked to him. I said, you know, every indication is you should be one of the best employees in the hotel here, and you're failing. And I'm just wondering, what's going on? And he said, I'll tell you what's going on. They have me opening this department at 5:30 in the morning, and I'm a night person. I'm not even a human being at 5:30 in the morning. I can't think straight at 5:30 in the morning. It's painful for me to get up early enough to be here at 5:30 in the morning. It's miserable for me. So I went back. This is my brilliant solution. I went back to the HR director and the manager of the concierge team, and I said, you got an opening on the night shift? They said, yes, it happens, we do. I said, good, give them a shift. Overnight, I mean literally overnight, this guy was one of the best employees in the hotel. I mean, sometimes the issues of fit are staring you in the face, but you need to make sure that people are in the right fit. Because I will tell you something, if you get more people spending more time in their areas of strength, I'm going to translate that for you, doing things they're good at and enjoy. When you get more people spending more time in that space where they're doing things they're good at and enjoy, all of your metrics will move in the right direction. Morale will go up, productivity will go up, quality of work will go up, customer satisfaction will go up. They all will move in the right direction. So here's a tough question. I'm not going to ask anybody to share the answer to this, but I want you to write down an answer to this question. I promise you, you won't have to tell anybody. Think about your time in a given month. What percentage of your time do you spend doing things you're good at and enjoy? Just write it down. I'm not going to ask you to share it, I promise. But I do want you to write it down for yourself. I want you to have the feedback for yourself. What do you think people in your organization would write down if you asked them that question? And you can ask people that question, and then you can have a follow-up question, which is, what can I do to help you move that number in the right direction? That's very important. You want people to be more engaged. Whoever they report to, get them to ask that question. How much time do you spend, what percentage of your time do you spend doing things you're good at and enjoy? And if you get a number less than 90%, ask a follow-up question. What can I do to help move that number up? And you can increase engagement in your organization without having big organization-wide strategies. Okay, quit asking people to change. Make sure you get the fit right. Put people in the right fit where they're spending most of their time doing things they're good at and enjoy, where their natural, spontaneous behavior leads to success. Here's the next practical technique I'm going to leave you with. We're running up on our time. Would you hand those out, please? Please write this down. It's an unusual phrase. It's 2 words. Emotional rehiring. This is a technique you can go back and teach your managers. I'm going to have you do it right now, but I'm going to wait until these cards are handed out. Everybody have a card? Pick a card, any card. Sir, we have a problem with one of the cards? You have a defective card?
No, we only just have one we're going to share.
No. We have enough for everybody. We need some cards at this table. Okay, now everybody have a card? Great. This is what emotional rehiring is. When somebody has done something worthy of a gesture of appreciation or recognition from one human being to another, not necessarily in whatever your administrative system is, just a human gesture of recognition or appreciation. Emotional rehiring is where I say something like this. This is Kim Shirk sitting here in the blue shirt. Is that a shirt or a blouse?
Either one.
That's in any event, where I say to Kim, you know what, I sincerely appreciate your being able to arrange to get this videotaped at the last minute. I know it was not easy to do, and it's going to make a big difference to me when we submit this tape to the Speakers Bureau, and I am glad to be working with you. Now, as it happens, Kim knows I meant that. It's true what I said. So that's all you have to do. And you can emotionally rehire your spouse, your significant other, your best friend. I got emotionally rehired by one of my close friends who has just been diagnosed with cancer, and she wrote me a very nice note. Emotional rehiring is very powerful, and it doesn't take very long to do, and it's free. And if you're sincere, you can't do it too frequently. So what does that involve? It involves calling out something specific that somebody did, and in your case, I'm going to ask you to write at the very final phrase, I'm going to ask you to write on this card is, I'm glad you're here. Now, I want you to think of anybody in your life, someone who deserves a note of recognition or appreciation, and I want you to write it on this card, and I want you to finish the expression, the sentiment, with the words, I'm glad you're here. Now, if change it if you need to change it for the context, but you get the point. So I want you to just do that. And while you're writing this, it probably doesn't serve you to copy off someone else's note for this exercise. While you're writing this is something you can teach people in your organization. This does not have to be hierarchical. It's one human being to another. Forget the hierarchy. Some hourly employee could write this to some vice president for whatever reason, or to a supplier. Suppliers don't get this kind of recognition and appreciation generally from people if they have done something worthy of appreciation. There's all kinds of ways, and again, this is not meant to be put in someone's file. It's meant to be conveyed from one human being to another human being and not be part of the administrative system. And as I say, you can teach people to do this. And if you want to really knock somebody's socks off, about twice a year, one of the things I do is I write a note like this, but I send it to the person's family. I get their home address and I send it to their family. And we have a lot of people at Talent Plus who are much younger than me, and I really enjoy sending this to their parents. And I don't tell them. I let their parents tell them. Hey, I used to be president. Hey, I got a note about you from the president of the company. Oh my God. Get a lot of mileage, doesn't cost you anything. This is a very, very powerful technique. It's powerful when you mean it. It's powerful when you're authentic and sincere. You can do it verbally or you can do it in writing. And I will tell you this, you do it in writing, people will never throw these away. Never. Anybody in here ever get a note of appreciation from somebody who reported to you? If you have, raise your hand. Yeah. In the back, sir, how did that make you feel? Most people I ask if they've received one of these, it's pretty meaningful. Did you keep it? Not forever? Shame on you. Okay. So most of you are done. I timed it. Most of you finished writing this note in less than 3 minutes. That's how long it takes. So I want you to think about your organization and just think about people in management for a minute. However many people there are in management, however you would define it, suppose you got people to write a note like this once a week, times 50. Tangible instances of appreciation and recognition sincerely felt. If your managers can't find something to appreciate once a week in their departments, they're not looking hard enough. I will tell you that. So I'm going to recap what we did, and I've got 2 calls to action for you. So the recap is this. Most people, according to Gallup studies and other organizations that do similar studies, most people, when they leave a job because of their supervisor. So strategically, as a human resources professional, strategically, the most important thing you can do to reduce your employee turnover and increase your retention is make sure everybody has a good supervisor. Do that by promoting people not just based on how they do in their current job, but based on thinking about what potential do they really have to be a great supervisor. It's a different kind of endeavor. So do that. And then remember, other reasons people leave their job is they're not growing, they don't enjoy their job, and they're not spending time in their strength. You can get better at that. You can quit asking people to change. You can accept them the way they are. You can make sure they're in the right fit so that they're spending more and more time in that space where they're doing things they're good at and enjoy. And you can use this technique, emotional rehiring. You can do it verbally, you can do it in writing, and you can teach it to, frankly, everybody in your organization. We use this, and we have lots of associates at Talent Plus who use this technique in their personal life. In their personal life. They might, in fact, I wrote one of these to the husband of a Talent Plus associate because I saw his name in the paper. And he had been recognized in his company, and I wrote him a note. I got a very heartfelt thank you from him. So these are techniques that, these are practical. They make a big difference. So I hope that you take something away from here that you can implement tomorrow, or maybe even this afternoon, that will help you improve your retention. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. I've got the 2 calls to action I told you I was going to have. Number 1 is, whatever that card was, whatever you wrote, give it to the person. And number 2, that person you thought about who made a difference in your life as a manager or a teacher, as a coach, tell them. Say, you know what? I was in a seminar and the leader, seminar facilitator, asked us to think about somebody who was a great role model as a manager or a teacher or a coach or whatever. Somebody who made a difference in my life. I just wanted you to know I thought of you, and here's why. Now again, you can do that verbally, or you can do it in writing, but what a deposit in somebody's emotional bank account. It won't take you long. So my call to action is do those 2 things. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.